Many thanks for joining us. I am Omobolanle Adeshui. We'll begin with business news from Abuja, where Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says Nigeria can, in less than a decade, banish food insecurity while radically improving export earnings from agriculture with the launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program. Osinbajo made this known when he represented President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday at the official launch of the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones in Nigeria at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Abuja. According to him, the launch of the SABS program ushered in a better future for the agricultural sector. Osinbajo is optimistic that the program will create millions of lucrative agro-industrial jobs and opportunities for citizens. On the importance of the program to Nigeria, he noted that it has become a crucial element of the country's agricultural strategy, which is to accelerate the industrialization of the agricultural sector with the objective of being ahead of constraints in providing food, nutrition, and wealth for the largest population on the continent. SABS program, recently approved by the Federal Executive Council, was driven by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in alignment with the National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy of the federal government to incentivize agro-industrialization for private sector development. The federal government is investigating the circumstances that led to the 4.9 trillion naira wage bill of its ministries, departments, and agencies in the 2023 budget. The amount, which is about 30% of the total 20.5 trillion naira budget of 2023, is considered to be very much on the high side, and it has, however, necessitated further inspection of the salaries of MDAS, addressing the field and monitoring officers in the execution of 2022 salary inspection project. Chairman of the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, Ekpo Nta, stated that given the bloated nature of the government's personnel cost, there is a need to keep it under continuous surveillance and control to avoid government finances going haywire. Nta, who was represented by the Commissioner Compensation, Dr. Mojisola Yaya Koladi, noted that the wage sector accounts for upward of 30% of the government's budget and, if not checked, could become a challenge to the administration. In his remarks, Acting Director of Compensation, Chiadi Adigogo, noted that in order to recommend an increase in salaries or pensions, the Commission requires the staff strength of 7 staff and pensioners in MDAs. According to him, this is to enable it to compute the cost implication and the ability of the government to pay, which is a cardinal principle of International Labour Organization conventions. The federal government made 408.7 billion naira through the sale of spectrum and taxes in the information, communication and technology sector, according to data released on Monday by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, PANTAMI. Speaking at a press briefing ahead of the 2022 Digital Nigeria Day, PANTAMI noted that the ICT sector provided 3 unprecedented contributions to the gross domestic product, GDP, of the country in the last 3 years, namely 14.07% in the first quarter of 2020, 17.92% in the second quarter of 2021, and 18.44% in the third quarter of 2022. He pointed out that the ICT sector grew by 14.7% in the fourth quarter of 2020, making it the fastest growing sector of the Nigerian economy in the last quarter of 2020 and the only sector to have grown by double digits. PANTAMI stated that the government aims to create a pool of innovation-driven enterprises to accelerate the development of Nigeria's digital economy. And in a bid to drive economic growth in Nigeria, the Islamic Development Bank has approved $1.8 billion to finance several key projects in the country. This was disclosed by the president of the Saudi-based bank, Dr. Mohammed Jasser, at a meeting with the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, in Abuja on Monday. He said, quote, the Islamic Development Bank has approved a total financing of $1.8 billion for Nigeria. This includes $971 million in project financing, $288 million provided by our private sector affiliate, and $477 million in trade operations by our trade arm, International Islamic Trade Finance Corporation, and $90 million by other Islamic Development Bank Group funds and operations. Yesterday disclosed that the Islamic Development Bank's portfolio in Nigeria stood at $1.2 billion, noting that the bank had completed 35% of those projects and looked forward to strengthening the bilateral and regional initiatives with Nigeria. He said the bank's portfolio covered 15 states of the Federation, commending the federal government for its economic diversification initiatives. And Nigerians have been tasked to prepare for the reverberating effect of the flooding ravaging some states across the nation. Nelson Okujumi, a public affairs analyst, made this admonition on IBrandTV's Business Breakfast show on Tuesday. According to him, the devastating floods have affected various critical sectors and also worsened by the slow response of stakeholders.
Minister for Water Resources, you and I should, from this flooding, we should expect that things will be a bit tighter going forward to next year because of the reverberating effects, which we cannot quantify. But I was watched on the national TV where the president has given the Minister of Water Resources a night at every tier of government. We have not done our bits. We have all lagged in our responsibility, and that is why we are here. So as the president has given the marching order to the Minister for Water Resources, you and I should ask the state government what are their plans. We should ask the local government administration what are their plans also, going forward. We had this type of flooding in 2010, and here we are in 2022 experiencing a similar scenario, which is an indication that as a people, we don't learn from history.
And the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, says it has set in motion modalities to auction the remaining 3.5 gigahertz spectrum for the deployment of 5G networks in the country. This has presented yet another opportunity for Airtel, Glo, and 9Mobile to join the 5G race. NCC, which is the regulatory authority for the telecommunications industry in the country, has published the draft information memorandum on the auction of the remaining 3.5 gigahertz spectrum. The information memorandum defines the process that the Commission will adopt for the licensing of the remaining 3.5 gigahertz spectrum. It also provides information on the Nigerian communications market, details of the spectrum on offer, the pre-qualification process, the auction process, and the indicative timetable. The average yield on fixed interest securities backtracked on Monday as market participants turned up in a bullish mood ahead of the Central Bank of Nigeria's Treasury Bills primary market auction on Wednesday. Amidst tight liquidity in the financial system, there was a slowdown in demand for federal government bond instruments last week, forcing higher spot rates across tenured. Pressures by debit for the Debt Management Office auction and CBN Forex auction, the overnight lending rate was unchanged at 16.5%, according to market data. In the secondary market for trading treasury bills, there was a strong bullish sentiment in the space as investors seek higher returns in the debt management market. And traders told Market Forces Africa that the average yield dipped by 20 basis points to 10.1% from 10.3% on Monday. Buoyed by the rising connectivity across the country, the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, NIBSS, said bank customers in Nigeria transferred a total of 12.8 trillion naira over mobile devices between January and September this year. according to NIBSS data for mobile money transfers for the 9-month period. The value of deals through the channel has already surpassed the 8 trillion naira recorded in the full year 2021. Year-on-year, the NIBSS data showed that the value of mobile transactions has grown by 153% in the 9 months of this year compared to the 5.06 trillion naira recorded in the same period last year. The bank stated that the volume of mobile inter-scheme transactions also rose by 133% year-on-year from 188 million recorded between January and September last year to a higher figure this year. We'll take a break now. When we'll come back, we'll bring you more stories. Please stay with us.